So forward, for we've been part of this movement for a few years now. Forward was really actually initially started in 1983 by FWAD Kenu, the late, but became a charity, a registered charity in the UK in 1985. So we're quite old, and we've been around quite a bit. We focus on, initially it was female genital mutilation, but we've since moved on from that. It was, unchild marriage, well, especially in Africa. But we've, as I mentioned before, moved on to cover really all forms of VAWG, in order to provide a holistic service to women, because, you have to take a woman as a whole human being. They don't just suffer from FGM, they suffer from a lot of other things as well. And our vision, as it states, it's a world in which African women and girls live in dignity, are healthy, and enjoy equal rights. But this doesn't mean that we only work with African women and girls. We work with all women. Here in the UK, we're working mainly with African communities, but we have women accessing our service, Middle Eastern women. We've been recently supporting a few women from Iraq, Iraqi background, Kurdish, even white women who are survivors of FGM. They were married into families who practice FGM. So we have come across a few of these cases, just to give you an idea that, it's not just African women we work with or support. So forward, what do we do? So forward, we work with strategic partnership at policy and service delivery and community level, influencing policy. We've been involved in a lot of policies, actually, even recently, the domestic abuse bill, the age of marriage, a bill that has been going on recently. Forward was really a very, very active, proactive member of, the organizations that were contributing to that. Because for years, actually, Forward has been raising this issue that, how comes the age of marriage in Africa, for example, is an issue. But in the UK, a girl can marry under 18, a 16-year-old can actually get married with permission from parents. That's a double standard, if you like. So we're always challenging these issues. And we enable and support key stakeholders to help shape the health and rights of African women and girls. We undertake policy advocacy to influence development and implementation. And we provide training and advisory services. We train professionals, a lot of health professionals, social services, any professionals that have interest in the issues we work on. We do a lot of training. We also train community members, women and men, champions and change makers, and we work with them. So we have a lot of these community women who are now advocates and speaking out, not just in their communities. Some are now actually on international platforms, kind of spearheading work to end FGM and other VAWGs. We undertake research to support policy and practice. At the moment, we're working on a research on sexual violence in universities and looking at the policies that universities in the UK actually have on sexual violence, and if they're actually kind of walking the talk. Are those policies just in their books and they're not actually doing anything about sexual violence in education in the universities or colleges. To undertake project interventions in UK, Europe, and Africa. So in UK, we work very directly with communities, with service providers. In Europe, we've been working with partner organizations, and for years we were part of the End FGM European network. In Africa, we work with also with grassroots partners. So that's really, in a nutshell, generally overall welcome. So International Zero Tolerance Day to FGM, is an international day that was founded in 2003 to really create awareness. It's a United Nations sponsored annual awareness day that takes place in February 6th, as part of the UN's effort to eradicate FGM. So we really rally communities, we rally agencies. This is an international thing, so we normally have workshops, we raise awareness, we, even go out into the streets sometimes and give out leaflets just to keep FGM in people's minds. It's not the only day we work on FGM, but this particular day is really a date that, everybody kind of is talking about FGM and how to really address these issues worldwide. So this year, this is the UN Secretary General was talking about FGM, and you can see the figures here. Around 4.3 million girls will be at risk of FGM just this year alone. And he was saying that FGM, as we know, is a practice that has lasted for more than 1,000 years, for thousands of years, really. Causes damage to both, physical and mental health of women and girls. We know this, we've read about this. Some of these numbers, we always say, these are guesstimates. These numbers are probably a lot what we see. And some of the statistics we look at today are quite old as well. So what is FGM? And why do we normally talk about it? And just also to give a disclaimer that this is a sensitive issue. You all know that, and we will be talking about it. We don't use, I'll show you some images, but these are not images of actual people. These are plastic models we use for training. However, it can be triggering, it can be upsetting. So if you're feeling a bit out of sorts, please let me know. And Elsa is here also to support. So just to mention that. So FGM, this is a World Health Organization definition. The term female genital mutilation procedures involving partial or total removal of the external female genitalia or other injuries to the female genital organs for non-medical reasons. So the main words here is really for non-medical reasons. Because sometimes we do understand, any part of your body as a human being could have issues, medical reasons that issues that you may need surgery for. But FGM, as we know, is not practiced for any medical reason at all. So this is the definition from the World Health Organization of what actually FGM is. And then many terms, some people, we know that some organizations, especially, across the pond in the US, they don't kind of like the word mutilation. So some people use female genital cutting. Some people even use female circumcision, which we kind of steer away from, because then it kind of starts going into, what about male circumcision? And we are focusing really on female genital mutilation. We use FGM. Some people even prefer to use female genital surgeries, which again is very misleading. So we have other names. These are just a few of them. Because we bring this up because it's important. Well, sometimes when we are talking to a woman or talking to communities, they don't know it as FGM. They know it in their own community languages. So especially for those of us who work with women and support women, we need to know that, sometimes these women don't know it as FGM. So you may ask a woman and they say, no, we don't do it. But when you know some of these terms, you can take it further. There are a lot more other names than these. These are just a few of them. So when we get together with communities, we ask them, so what do you call it in your language? And we add those to the list. We keep adding them to the list. And it means we're also getting to understand better the communities we are serving. So you see, but this word here, sunnah, there's a caveat around this word. When we mention this word, sometimes it causes, a lot of discussions in whenever we're doing workshops or coffee morning, because women then say, but sunnah is a good thing. In Islam, that word means a lot to us. It's important. It means something we should emulate, we should follow. And, and more often than not, we hear women telling us, we don't do FGM, we only do sunnah. And when they're saying sooner, they're referring to type 1 FGM, which I will show you in a minute. But we always say, FGM has got nothing to do with religion. So when people use religion or use words like this, it's kind of, it gets in people's heads, it's manipulative, it makes people believe that this is something they're supposed to be doing. So we leave it here, we leave the word because people use it, but we always kind of say more about it. So I'm going to go into the images I mentioned before. If anybody gets triggered or it causes anybody to feel a bit, just take a breather, a few seconds, and then come back or let else know. But these are, as I said, these are pictures of the plastic models, and this is to really help people to understand the different types of FGM. And the different types is not as clear cut as you will see in the images. Sometimes people are in between the different types. And again, this categorization was done by the World Health Organization. It doesn't mean that one type is better than the other. All types of FGM are harmful and are wrong and are illegal. So the next image I'm going to show you is it's very interesting. Actually, this is the image of the female genitalia. It's a quiz that we normally get people to do to answer this, and just as an icebreaker to get people to we have to know our body parts, to know what their functions are, what's the importance of these parts of our body. They all have a function. It's important that we know this. And, there's a reason why we show this. And so I'll get people to name them. And so you name it and you say what it's for. So I'll start from here, this red spot here. What is this? We don't have to feel shy.
That's a clitoris.
Yeah. And what's the function of the clitoris?
A joy.
Pleasure, gives pleasure. And one fact about the clitoris, as the scientist tells us, is that it has 8,000 nerve endings. So it's the most sensitive part of a woman's body, So this starts to give you idea of, what would a girl feel when something happens to this part of her body, or somebody is cutting it or doing something to it. What about the black dot here? The second arrow. Asifa, I think you've unmuted yourself. You want to say?
Oh, sorry, which one? Is it labia?
I thought you wanted. Sorry. No, this spot, the black spot here.
Oh.
Is it the urethra?
Yes, it's the urethra. This function?
Is that where urine comes from?
Yeah, this is where we from. This is where the urine leaves our body, comes out. It really, you would be surprised to know just how many people don't know that actually this is where our urine comes out, where we wee from. And what about this one? This outer arrow here.
This is labia, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is the labia majora, or the big lips, as we sometimes refer to it as the big lips. And it kind of gives us the shape to that part of our body. It protects what is on the inside of the genitalia. And the one underneath it
is the inner lip.
Yeah, the inner lips, or the labia minora. And the last one here, I'm having problem with my mouse. This last dot here.
The womb.
Is it called the cervix?
Yeah.
No.
The entrance. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't know, but yeah.
So this is the entrance, the vaginal entrance opening. So normally people think the whole thing is the vagina, but it's not. Actually, the whole thing is like kind of the vulva, but this is the opening to a vagina, and the vagina has three main functions in our lives. So your periods come out of there, sexual intercourse happens there, and childbirth when you have a normal child delivery, that's where the baby comes from. And so we normally go through this with women, and a lot of the time we see like shock in their faces because they really, most people don't know. And, and people think, oh, but we thought urine also comes from the same place from here. And we're like, no, but it's important for people to know these functions. And then all this, and when you look at the labia, this area stretches. When you're having a baby, this area stretches to allow, the baby to come out. But when these areas turn into scar tissues, scars don't stretch. So we get women having a lot of problems during birth, a lot of problems with sexual intercourse, a lot of problems with periods, because, these areas have been tampered with. So we'll now look at the different types of FGM as per the World Health Organization. Stop me anytime if you have a question or you want to make a comment. So this is type 1 FGM. I'm sure you've all seen this image before. You can already see the difference in this part compared to the image you saw before. The clitoris has been removed. It's called clitoridectomy. This is where part of all the clitoris has been taken off. The level at which this is taken off also depends on the cutter. Sometimes they cut really deep and can cause a lot of damage. So that's type 1. Type 2 is this. This is also called excision, and it's where the clitoris and the inner labias, the inner lips, have been cut away. So you can already see the difference, as we're going along. The labia minora and the clitoris are removed. So that's type 2. This is type 3. This is infibulation. And this is where the clitoris, the inner lips, and in some cases, even the outer lips or the labia majora are cut away and the remaining skin are pulled together and soon sewn together to varying degrees. For some women we've supported, it's half down. For some women, it's completely sewn all the way down. So that's type 3. Type 4, we don't have the image for because it involves all other practices or injuries or that's done to the female genitalia. These are just some of them. There are others that we've not put here or we don't even know yet, but every time we come across new things. So, in some communities, they may prick the girls or babies' clitoris to draw blood, with a sharp object. They may pierce it, incision without cutting it off. They cut, they make a cut on either the clitoris or any part of the genitalia. Cauterizing, burning of the skin or flesh with heated instrument. Stretching and pulling. Where I come from, a lot of communities practice this. It's so common where it's the inner labias that are stretched from the time around puberty time. They start to do this on girls. The aunties actually play a very big role in this, and so the inner labias are stretched so long in some cases, and different reasons are given to this, so that when a girl marries, the husband gets more pleasure. I did a session with a group of women from another country in Africa, and they said that if they don't stretch their labias, they cannot have babies. So these are reasons that really are powerful and manipulative that actually makes people, carry out these practices. Or the scraping, we've come across communities where the inside of a girl's or woman's vagina is scraped out, all in the name of culture, or use of herbs and other substances for tightening the vaginal canal, because, that's how your husband likes it, or that's how men like it. And I know, especially with the pulling now, they use herbs, and sometimes now they're even using chemicals to make it grow long quicker. And this all cause harm. They burn and cause all sorts of injuries to girls. So that's type 4. Any questions? Are people okay? Are people all right? Good. Okay. So, sorry, I feel like I'm rushing through this, but please stop me if you have any questions. So why do people practice this? Why it's been going on for thousands of years, and also the campaign against it has been going on for decades, really. But we find that people really believe in these practices. It's not something you just tell people, you have to abandon this. People hang on to this. And these are some of the reasons, that, social norms, these unwritten laws in communities and in cultures that are given for these practices. So culture and tradition, people will tell you we do it because it's our culture. But when you try to probe deeper and tell them, but culture grows, culture changes, people just say, it's our culture, our mother did it, our grandmother did it, it's always been done. But when we have conversation around culture, the positive, we have beautiful cultures, but there are also some negative, in cultures that needs to be weeded out. Religious obligation is used a lot, where people say, but it's a religious requirement. We know for certain that FGM is not a religious requirement. It's not in the Quran, it's not in the Bible. We have a short video we'll watch about, where some faith leaders are actually speaking about this. Marriage and purity, marriage purity and chastity is a very common thing. You will also see that FGM is very linked to honor. So all these things are kind of linked. When you look at FGM, you look at child or forced marriage, you look at honor-based violence, they're so interlinked. FGM actually in most communities is a precursor to child marriage, because once you're cut, you're a woman, So marriage and purity is like, a girl or a woman who is cut is a good woman. She can command a bigger bride price, bigger dowry, brings honor to the family. She's looked upon with respect. She's seen as, belonging to her family, to the community. So there's a lot of like pride, attached to it, which makes, somebody wants to do it, because you don't wanna feel left out in your community. I come from Uganda, and in Uganda we have just a few tribes that practice FGM, and I know one of them where if a girl is not cut, she basically becomes an outcast. Nobody will marry her, And so we had like a project in that place by another big international organizations that targeted the elders and got the elders to promise that, it's not going to happen. And nobody talked to the girls. So the girls were theirs. Nobody was asking to marry them. So they crossed the border into Kenya and got cut. So this is also another reason why everybody has to be involved in this conversation, from the young people, both boys and girls and men and women and elders. Every part of the community needs to be involved in this conversation. So family honor, aesthetics and hygiene, they're actually people who hold a strong belief that a woman who is not cut or a girl who is not cut is dirty, they smell, So in order to get rid of that, you have to be cut. There are parts of your body that needs to be taken away for you to be a clean woman, for you not to smell bad. And then, gender identity, I mentioned that, you want to belong, to be seen as a woman, not forever as a child or a young girl. You want to belong and be a woman. But there's so many other things, a woman is not just cutting your body that makes you a woman. There's so many other things that, is valuable for a woman or for a girl. It's not just her genitalia or, that needs to be changed that makes her a woman. So FGM is a social norm. As I said, it guarantees status and acceptance within your community and your family. You get approval and, pride, and benefits and, rewards. People talk about gifts and parties being thrown when they were cut, public recognition in your community. And non-conformity to these norms, means isolation for some of the women, exclusion, shame and ridicule. You get ostracized and rejected, and there's a lot of stigma. There's probably the stigma of not being cut for a lot of these women outweighs, what the impact we talk about FGM, because nobody wants to live as an outcast, not being accepted. So when we work with communities, these are the beliefs we need to change, these mindsets. We need to bring them out because, nobody used to talk about FGM because it's also taboo to talk about. They do this to you and you're forbidden, from talking about it. And this, what keeps it going, means people are not challenging it, people are not questioning it. So when we talk about FGM, we have to understand the background. Why would a mother put her daughter through this when she knows the suffering that comes with it? And no mother wants their child to be ostracized, to be stigmatized, to be, treated as an outcast or somebody who is not clean enough to even cook for her family or to be near her family. Back home when we were in school, I remember we were all in boarding school, but girls from these tribes used to be given weeks off school to go back during the cutting season. But of course, now that has stopped with the more awareness. And even in Africa, a lot of governments have banned FGM, but nobody is implementing the law. So it's continuing anyway. People keep doing it. So we have to understand the cultural competency, the nuances behind these harmful practices. Why do people keep doing it? We've moved away, maybe thousands of miles away from home, but we're still doing it. We're still holding to that belief. Why? What's the importance for it? And that's really what we try to change, that mindset and belief. Okay, so looking at why do we keep talking about FGM? We know it's harmful. We've talked about it, but what are the impact? This harmfulness. How does it affect a woman or a girl, really? So we have this video, which we'll watch, and then we'll have a discussion.
I've been in therapy for a while now. The memory's still there, even though I blocked it out for a long time. For years, I've had infection after infection, back pain, and too many painful examinations. I have to scratch it. The scar. I can't pass urine properly. Sometimes it's just this drip, drip, drip. Or I wet myself. Sex is unbearable. Half of my privates have gone. Everything is closed up. I just have a hole and scar tissue. So ugly. When I got married, I began to be terrified whenever I saw my husband undress. It's like torture every time he comes near me. It's like living that day over and over. I still can't bear to have sex with him. For me, the affairs with the other women actually make my life easier. He said he wanted a woman who could satisfy him. That sex with me is like rape. I've never had an orgasm. A pleasure when he touches my body just ends. He reaches down there. It makes me feel like half a woman. My heart broke the day I was told I couldn't have children, that I wasn't able to give my husband the child he wanted, and his family blaming me. And that's when I started therapy. And I started to remember what I'd blocked out. The day they took me, I was 8. My little sister was just 6. I covered my ears to stop the sound of her screaming. But the nightmares never go away. The flashbacks still happen too. The first time it caused me real problems was when I was 13. I woke in the night with terrible pain. They did lots of tests. They thought it was a cyst, but it was my period collecting inside me. My mum would lay on the floor beside my hospital bed. Every time my period came, I had to have an operation to let it out. 20 by the time I was 16. So many times I wanted to ask, why? But the words don't come.
I know FGM normally really kind of stuns people, especially when we see videos like this. And these videos are actually made by survivors. They're not, it's not fiction. These are actual survivors that participated in the making of these videos. It's FGM is very patriarchal, but it's really driven by women. You know, the elderly women, especially because the pressure, the society, that social norm puts a lot of pressure on women. You know, if, for example, my daughter ends up not getting married, you know, think about rural Africa. Guess who will get blamed for it? You know, the mother, the grandmother. You know, so the pressure is put on them. The responsibility is put on the women. So when we talk to men, they're like, but it's the women who are doing it. You know, we're not the ones doing it. And I'm like, you know, your silence speaks volume. You know, in Uganda, there was a few years ago, there was an article about an 8-month-old pregnant woman who took herself behind her house in the bush and cut herself. And she was arrested for performing F. And when somebody questioned the husband said it has nothing to do with him. But for months, this man had not said a word to his wife because his peers were laughing at him for marrying an unclean woman. So this woman was afraid of losing her husband. So she cut herself, you know. So we need also the voices of men on this. You know, they keep blaming each side, and you know, they're like the men say nobody asked them if they want this, and the women are like, it's the men who want this to be going on. When you are a man, as a young man, reach that age of getting married, who are you looking to marry? Is your family telling you marry a clean girl, look for a clean woman? You know, but just to comment on the culture changes, there used to be FGM practice in Britain or in the Western world as well, especially type 1 FGM. People talk about Victorian times, you know, as cure a cure for lesbianism or a cure for heresy. You know, if a girl was too talkative or active, you know, when they burnt the witches or whatever, they used to cut girls. And we used to say Victorian times, but as recent as the mid-20 something, you know, there was a first American woman, white woman who spoke, was in the Guardian, big article, who said when she was 2-3, her mother took her to the doctor and they performed type 1 FGM on her. There was an Irish woman more recently who I think before COVID, who spoke about her own experience of, again, being taken to the doctor and being cut, you know. So these things happen in so many circumstances. Currently, we've been supporting a couple of women, English women, who are actually survivors of FGM, but because they married into families that practice FGM, then they ended up in domestic abuse, the marriage ended. You know, it just breaks your heart, you know, to see these women. But FGM is everybody's business. You know, I didn't reach the safeguarding bit. We all have to be concerned about it. You may have, when I talk to my community, they say, but we don't practice FGM. And my next question to them is, you know, we've been in the UK for so many years. All our children are marrying people from other countries, you know, different tribes, different countries. And, you know, we need to be aware, you know, is your daughter or your son marrying into FGM practicing community? Is your neighbor's child at risk? What about where you work? You know, are you a teacher? Are you, you know, a medical professional? So it is a safeguarding issue. It's a child abuse. So we all need to know about it. It doesn't matter where you come from. The law has also really impacted the communities negatively in a way. And also there's definitely a reduction in disclosures. We used to get disclosures even in school from children who are at risk or, you know, but the fact that, no, you know, a child is worried that the parents may go to jail. Nobody discloses anymore. And also the protection order, you know, so when we get time next time, we'll look at the law. How is it impacting the communities? FVAWG did a report on the protection orders where some of the families really, you know, without any evidence were put under the protection law, because anybody can take FGM protection law order, you know, on a child. You know, I know it's the judge that decides. We work with a lot of families who are under the protection law, on the psychosocial education thing, which sometimes goes on for months, again unfunded. But this, once your child is under the protection order, you can't travel with that child anywhere. Children are being checked at airports. We've never been part of the airport checks because we have reservations about that. We know that some of these have been really, really unfairly done. We know we want FGM to end, definitely. But there are also better ways of doing things. And if policy or law is not working or is causing harm also to communities, we need to look into it and really question some of these things. There's anything you're taking about away from here is okay. And so now we've heard about it. I'm sure you've all heard about it before, but what can we do as a coalition? How can we create this space where we actually have these conversations? So it's really important that we do have these conversations.